The big news event has been the crypto execs at the White House.
I think Trump says that the US is considering buying a sizable amount of Bitcoin. And another key headline is Trump has called on Congress to actually pass the Crypto Clarity Act.
The market just needed one little shift, some sort of comment from Trump or the legislation actually passing for the market to kind of reverse out of this bottoming structure.
What's really interesting about XRP is you have a token that's down approximately 70% below its highs. Capitulation signals are flashing. However, the institutional flows, the accumulation from institutions and the RWA activity on the XRP ledger, they're growing.
Yeah. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Cashew Markets podcast, brought to you by UpTrade and, of course, Cashew Group. We have our very good friend George Kaltekis with us this week again to bring us all the news, the macro trends, and, of course, to share in the excitement of the markets finally showing some signs of decent life. The defibrillator has been used. We have bounced off the deathbed, Georgie, and things are looking a little bit more rosy out there in the land of crypto. How are you, my friend?
I am. Yes, I'm doing well, Nate. Thanks for having me on another session. And I think it's our 7th one now. And I see you have a new background.
Yes, I'm going to have a lot of different backgrounds. I'm in George's motherland, actually, visiting all of his relatives in Greece. I'm not actually, but yes, I am in Greece. I'm in Rhodes today, and we'll be doing some travel around the islands near the Turkish coast over the next couple of weeks, visiting some holy sites. So very excited. Georgie, we've got a lot to cover today. We mainly, the big news event has been the crypto execs at the White House. So I thought we might start there. What have you taken away from it? Why are the markets sort of pumping off the back of it?
Yeah, so summary of the US summit, and there was a few key headlines that really kicked this market to the upside the last 24 hours. I think Trump says that the US is considering buying a sizable amount of Bitcoin. So don't know how large is sizable, but I'm assuming it's in the billions, and not only Bitcoin, but other cryptocurrencies. And there's another key headline is Trump has called on Congress to actually pass the Crypto Clarity Act. So they're obviously feeling a bit behind the 8 ball to some other leading countries like China and Russia in crypto adoption. And they want the US to be the crypto capital, effectively, of the world. So that has come as a massive surprise, shock news. And yeah, I know that there's been other things they mentioned as well. But Nate, what's your take on this?
Yeah, it to me, it's all too similar to that week we had in July last year when they did the crypto 1 week summit where they passed the stablecoin bill, the Genius Act, and also passed through the House the Clarity Act. You and I have talked for weeks now that the market just needed one little shift, some sort of comment from Trump or the legislation actually passing for the market to kind of reverse out of this bottoming structure. It is probably too early to definitively call, but I do think if I was to personally bet on it, I would say that this is it. I think it's clear that behind closed doors, beyond all the manipulation, they are going to push hard to get this clarity over the line. I think it's now pushed to a vote in September. Trumpy's now got crypto back in his transcripts for all of his speeches, so who knows what type of comments he'll make over the coming months. We know his words move markets. They just do. And it's all orchestrated. I think he had crypto on his lips for probably 6 months there. He ejected out of the system with a lot of capital, but he's still in the system. He's got his World Liberty Financial, he's got his stable coin. Their family is 100% entrenched in crypto. I think it's only a matter of time, and the powers that be have certainly crippled most of retail sentiment, another thing we've talked about. And I hope that the listeners have held firm, strategically and safely accumulated during this period. And also, we're still at bottom levels. We're not out of the woods. That's what I've been doing. I know you've been doing, weathering the storm. So yeah, I read it as a genuine sentiment shift. I think things are going to start to look more rosy. But if we delve into perhaps exactly what this means, I know the SEC were roundtabling on the sort of 24/7 trading of tokenized assets. Georgie, do you want to expound upon that a little bit more and what that means for even the likes of Hyperliquid who were mentioned?
Absolutely. So you can effectively, once this gets passed, trade some of the biggest tech stocks in the world on a crypto platform. And we've seen how those integrations of those two worlds have emerged. Robinhood, one of the biggest stock broking platforms in the world, is now integrating with their Robinhood chain. And so what we're going to be able to see is tokenized assets that are actually stocks traded on the platform legally. And Hyperliquid, being one of the key RWA projects, they do trade 24/7, things like stocks, commodities, gold, silver, oil. So it just allows that sort of legal foothold where it will become legal and people in the US will be able to trade it. And, the US is the biggest market in the world. It's seen the most, largest inflow or influx of millionaires in terms of like wealth made last year due to the AI boom. And so this is a huge thing for paving the way around how crypto and TradFi, traditional finance, integrate. And so we even saw at that meeting, the CEO of even Ripple, Brad Garlinghouse was there. The founders and CEO of Chainlink, Sergey, they were speaking at the White House during the same announcement. So we're sort of trying to figure out what this all means behind the scene, and we definitely have our ears to the ground during this time.
Definitely, and yes, for my XRP adorers, it was awesome to see the Riddlers were ignited again this week with Brad Garlinghouse being there with Trump exactly 589 days after he was last at the White House meeting with Trump. With Stuart Alderoty, which is the CTO of Ripple. They had a private meeting with him. I believe it was either back end of 2024 or very early 2025, but exactly 589 days. That's a very significant number in our community, Georgie. It's a number of completion. There's a lot of symbology there. So that one really stirred the pot today. And as you rightly mentioned, all the key executives were there. We had comments from Robinhood CEO Vlad. I mean, they're just posturing to be a powerhouse once this tokenization and legal clarity comes. I thought one of the best things to reiterate this point, and I put a video out a couple of weeks ago on it. If you simply just hop over to the RWA tracker.com, we've gone in under 2 years from less than $4 billion in tokenized assets to $35 billion. We don't have legal clarity, and the compound annual growth rate of that is basically expected to be anywhere between 15 to 20 trillion in the next couple of years. So the compounding is absolutely ferocious. So it does not take a rocket scientist to figure out where this is going to be once all the big boys fire up the engines with RWAs in particular. So it's exciting. It's exciting, Georgie.
Absolutely. And, we're wondering who is going to be the leader in capturing all this tokenized liquidity or assets coming on to the blockchain. We know that XRP Ledger has currently about 4 billion itself in tokenized assets on their chain. So we're looking at seeing who's poised to capture a lot of that. Hyperliquid is sort of leading in the perpetual decentralized exchange world, and for simply what that means is like you can just trade on a decentralized platform. And we actually saw Trump mention it in his speech. He said, we're bringing Hyperliquid to the US. And then after that, in a 24 hours time span, it went up about 20%. I know Hyperliquid has been something that me and you yourself, Nathan, been speaking about for many, many months to my clients. A lot of people have made quite life-changing amounts of money on that in the last year or two. So yeah, I'm really, really happy to see that an asset that we've been talking about has been mentioned by Trump himself on the live stage, the main stage.
Definitely. We're going to get into some of the calls that particularly the UpTrade desk have made the last year in this bear market. They've done exceptionally well. We're going to go into the charts and cover Bitcoin, XRP, and the likes of Hyperliquid, and a couple of these calls that your exceptional research desk have found and called later on in the show. I wanted to also go into the story behind the story a little bit, which is this idea that despite this great positive news sentiment that we've woken up to, US bond yields are dumping, and there's sort of this stealth quantitative easing taking place. Do you want to just talk a little bit about that and why actually that is having a significant influence on the markets this past sort of 48 hours?
Yeah, so I mean, bond buybacks are not essentially easing, QE by government themselves, but they are another mechanism for easing financial conditions. So what we're looking at is the Fed renewing their balance sheet expansion, and what the biggest concern there is what are the impacts on liquidity and inflation, and that becomes more important. So what we're seeing is it creates a more favorable environment for risk assets, including Bitcoin, crypto, as you've seen, this huge rise and pump in the last 24 hours, and also gold and silver. So all those assets which are more of hedges against inflation had a huge rise. And that's something to definitely pay attention to. As you said before we went on, the US dollar sold off, and we saw that liquidity flow directly into these other assets. So I guess Bitcoin is obviously a scarce fixed supply asset, and it's BlackRock call it always a hedge against geopolitical uncertainty and a potential store of value against monetary debasement. And that's the concern when the government does these buybacks, or stealth QE as people call it. So keep an eye out on gold, silver, commodities and pay close attention if this kind of buying of their debt continues.
Yeah, well summarized, Georgie. And gold and silver I'm happy to call, have sort of bottomed out, I think. Gold, particularly around the 4,000 an ounce level. Silver retraced a fair bit all the way back to the triple tapped all-time high of that sort of 50, just above 50 US an ounce. The charts are certainly pointing to much more upside on gold and silver in particular. So that's exciting for the metal, my fellow metal holders. Now, what I thought we might do, Georgie, is get into the specifics on the notion of charting, and we might go through what you're seeing for Bitcoin, XRP, and the likes of Hype, etc.
Yeah, sure. I'll bring up XRP first because, I mean, what's really interesting about XRP is you have a token that's down approximately 70% below its highs. Capitulation signals are flashing. However, the institutional flows, the accumulation from institutions and the RWA activity on the XRP ledger, they're growing. So the market's focused on, we're trying to see what's actually happening underneath the hood of the car. So if you look at XRP, let's just quickly take a look at the technicals here. This is on the weekly time frame on Binance. You can see we had this huge rise here last week, all the way up to $1.10. And if you look at this structure here, this move down, which I've got highlighted, is actually, it's a fake out. It's a fake breakdown. It's a liquidity grab, and then it's tricked everyone out, and then boom, right into the positive news. We've come right up. This is a really bullish engulfing candle for Ripple. You can see also the RSI on the weekly is bottoming. It's just hitting an all-time low. So you have a liquidity grab with a bottoming RSI, and then a bullish Stoch RSI, stochastic, which this move, what we're looking to see is a price to come and test the 200-day moving average. This is what that blue and yellow line are. We want to really see it hit that. So I can even draw it. Let's have a look. We say we continue this bullish momentum, hit the EMAs, hopefully find some strength to break through and then get above this key level, which is key resistance around the 150 mark. But this is looking quite strong for Ripple, especially in the last 24 hours. So I would be definitely keeping a close eye on this one.
Yeah, and one of the other things we've looked at, if you zoom out a bit, Georgie, on that weekly, yeah, just head into back in XRP and zoom out on that chart a touch for the weekly, and you bring in that whole structure into shape. Yeah, so you've actually got, could you switch it to a logarithmic?
Yeah, sure. Where's log scale?
There we go. Yeah, and then so this here on a log, as Georgie rightly pointed out, you can clearly see now that big engulfing candle we've just got firing. That will likely come up, in my opinion, to at least test the 200 EMA. But this broader structure that you can see dating back to November 2024, if you follow the wicks all the way down to where we are today, the descending wicks, and then you follow the ascending grind line from the highs all the way down to where we are today with another line, Georgie.
Yeah, sure. So the highs to the lows.
You're going to see a clear falling wedge. And some commentators like myself have theorized that, you know, once this thing breaks, it's a macro trend reversal. So hopefully, you know, we see this wedge break out and the trend reverse.
Absolutely. If you look at this, if this breaks out, volume picks up and into this inefficiency here, which we've tapped into, this could be potentially an explosive breakout. So keep an eye out on this on XRP. That's definitely one to watch. Moving on to Bitcoin, similar structure. We had the liquidity grab below, tricked everyone into thinking we're going lower, below 58. We bottomed at exactly 57.8. This is then we've actually come back up, and now we're going into the 0.62 fib. So which is this inefficiency here. And so similar thing, we need to get above the 200-day moving average. And hopefully if we can form some strength above, we can aim for this next point of liquidity here, which is around the 83,000 mark. I would probably see a little bit of potential rejection here at the golden ratio zone, given that, you know, we've had this huge move up on positive news. But I think what could be happening here is we are pricing in the potential increased chances of the Clarity Act. I know it's, Nate, we've been discussing it's only about 22% chance of coming in. But since that announcement, that likelihood has increased since Trump's saying I'm going to push Congress to push it through. So that's what we're seeing here. The pricing in of that news event, a huge weekly. If you've noticed, what's different about Bitcoin in comparison to XRP? Can you see anything on the chart there? Because there's a clear distinction between the two. We've actually broken the 200-day on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
So Bitcoin's leading. I wonder if that means that XRP and others come next. But I'd be keeping a very close eye. This sort of structure here, especially on the day we've had the biggest liquidation of shorts seen in a long time. It's time to pay attention is the best way to put that, Nate, if you'd agree.
I do agree. And as you bring up hype, I'll just add to that context a bit more. We said in our last podcast, I believe, that the notion of this pricing in, the macro reversal being it's not the clarity, the linguistic choices of executives in the White House and Trump, the push for clear rules around the 24/7 trading, all of the real world evidence for actual shift towards this new world of decentralized finance through the likes of Hyperliquid, through the likes of Lighter, through the likes of RWAs. We were seeing the evidence on chain for that really happening since early this year. The early adopters have seen good upside in the bear market, but basically what we're trying to say is the evidence is there. It's already happening. As soon as this is greenlit with proper linguistic choices and sentiment, broader sentiment catches up with the evidence, it's game on. And I think that's what we're starting to see now. The Bitcoin candle there shows that it's starting to be priced in. If we reclaim on the Bitcoin chart, the 200 EMA, and probably come back and test it and bounce off, all rosy. Continue on, George.
Amazing. No, it's share the same views. And looking at hype, this is one that's been on everybody's lips the last few months, especially Trump's as of last night. What you can see here is, I can actually draw on the screen. This is a huge inefficiency here on the weekly. We've come in, we've sold off from the 75 level. We swept liquidity here. We've come right into that pocket, and then price has just been bought right back up. And as you've seen, since that announcement of Trump mentioning it, huge candle on the weekly time frame. We came right into this 0.5 to 0.62 fib level. That's the golden ratio. We've actually come in, and now we've just surged off it. A little bit concerning as the volume isn't as strong, but this is on Bybit's, I guess, their leverage product. So I guess we need to look at the spot product. So I wouldn't be too concerned about the volume. RSI is pretty strong. Stoch RSI is reset. So we're going to test this upper band here, potentially maybe cool off, and then we're really going to see if this then creates a pathway for the new all-time highs. So Hyperliquid, absolute runner. Buying now is a little bit obviously a bit risky if you're buying 20% on on an up day. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but of course it's something to be mindful of, is that you want to be buying when the price is low, generally speaking.
Yes, and another one that is quite similar to Hyperliquid, but on a more day trader, high frequency scale, that's had an integration with Robinhood, is Lighter. Very similar. One that was mentioned probably about 2 months ago now on this very podcast at, I believe, $1.80 it was on that day. Georgie, if you wouldn't mind bringing up the Lighter chart. This is one that was found by the UpTrade research team before we publicly talked about it on here. I believe they were talking about it around $1, if I'm not mistaken, maybe even earlier. George, you can correct me if I'm wrong. And look where we are today, $2.87. So it pays to listen to this show. We're bringing plenty of alpha. Lighters in primo spot as well. Georgie, why don't you talk a little bit about what you're seeing there for Lighter?
So as part of our strategy and research, it's about giving opportunity and finding new gems that we see as emerging and up and coming. Lido came on our radar because it falls within the narrative that our analysts are seeing as trending. We look at the entire crypto market. We saw Hyperliquid, and we try to find all comparative players. And we saw Lido emerge as a competitor. Actually, we saw that Robinhood had I think they invested seed round quite a lot of, probably like $25 million at around, I think it was around this price, give or take. So we saw VC investment quite strong, and then our analysts said, "Oh, okay, let's look into that." We saw it. We looked at it. We saw the prices only just above the average entry price of Robinhood, and then we saw later on announcements about the Lido integration with Robinhood chain, and the rest is history. So Lido is a competitor to Hype. Its revenue is growing, and as Nate mentioned, we mentioned it in this pocket somewhere here. It's on the stream as well. We were just talking generally about it. I know a lot of my clients already own it, but this structure here is phenomenal. This is a cup and handle structure, going for new all-time highs. So yeah, this is another one to keep an eye on. Tremendous free value to the audience here. I guess you wouldn't really find this kind of caliber of research in many places, I would say.
Yes. And look, as sentiment shifts, guys, honestly, I've been working with UpTrade now for, I think, the beginning of this year. We get along so well. We're loving the collaborative work with them. If you haven't already, get over to UpTrade, chat with George. You can book in a link below now and book in a 15-minute chat with George to be onboarded. Their product suite is the best. I can deal with my own trades within their brokerage setup. I don't have to always nag George on the phone, so I can execute things on my own in their back-end system. Their suite of services in there is exceptional. So do check it out. But the value doesn't stop. We do have one more that we're going to go through, but it's only for my Patreon members and the UpTrade Alpha subscribers, UpTrade Alpha Pro subscribers. So Georgie, why don't we talk a little bit about